Taking some pictures of some of our menagerie here. Turning the nip on some grass.
Look at mother. Look at mama.
Elise!
Look at mama.
Elise!
I would hope that, people can recognize that, an environmentalist is used as a dirty word in a lot of ways. And I think that's really missing the point, because we are dependent on ecosystems, watersheds, air, the same way that you would want your home, your house to be protected, that you would want your environment to be protected, because that only makes your existence more stable. And to let anyone ruin that or destroy that is, allowing a criminal act to happen.
The Appalachian Basin in West Pennsylvania holds some of the world's largest shale deposits. In September 2011, a meeting was held. A plan was devised to seize the initiative and bring that US advantage to Europe. A fleet of ships would create a virtual transatlantic pipeline to supply INEOS's European businesses with the US gas they desperately needed. This was to be the source of INEOS's new ethane feedstock. The only problem was how to get the gas to the coast, 300 miles away. And so a deal was struck with oil company Sunoco to pipe the gas to a facility west of Philadelphia.
It was forest land that was actually under a conservation plan, and that's forest land connected to our homestead. And so now what's happening is that is being turned into an industrial zone. It pretty much changes everything. I mean, it changes the landscape, it changes the ecosystem, it changes the safety of the homestead itself.
We've gone a legal route. I mean, when they took us to court for eminent domain, we fought that.
Last year, what happened was they took people who had never been arrested in their life before, like my mom, had her arrested 3 times over this pipeline, had a number of charges put on her, which all turned out to be false and be dropped eventually.
We're spending all this money on getting infrastructure for non-renewables, where we could take that same money and put it into renewable resources, something that's going to be around for a lot longer.
Last March, Elise Gerhart spent a week living in a tree to prevent Sunoco from clear-cutting her childhood woods and building their natural gas pipeline. While most trees were cut, the successfully defended trees have been fortified into the most elaborate tree sit ever conducted on the East Coast.
Trees that people are defending now wouldn't be here if we hadn't taken action last year.
From the Marcellus shale fields in Ohio and West Virginia, the Mariner East 2 will transport natural gas liquids for export on the East Coast, but the stronghold at Camp White Pine stands in its path.
It is not anything new or unusual for pipelines to coexist in residential areas, and they do now. And it's areas, just point out that, one, for some of the things that you addressed, if there were any issue, obviously there's liability to the company for that, as we discussed in terms of impacts.
We are in a blast zone, and, it almost feels like being a test case, because nobody really seems to know accurately what an NGL pipeline explosion would really look like, because these transmission lines are something really, really new. Transporting a product that's a byproduct, so it hasn't really happened like this yet.
We have at least 3 legal avenues that we're still pursuing, but yet, they can come and they can work, they can cut trees down, they can put pipeline in, they can drill through the wetlands with, impunity at this point.
Now they've filed paperwork with the local courts to further erode my mom's property rights here, basically saying that if she even is on that property, that now she is trespassing. Last year they didn't seem to have the power to charge us with trespassing, so they went into the court and asked for it, and they were given it. This judge, George Zanuck, has just kind of given them everything that they've asked for so far. These corporations get whatever they want from the state of Pennsylvania, and they have for a very long time.
Hey, there's a picture of a snake.
Head. Hello, Sticky.
Throughout the fracking boom, these pipelines and these pipeline fights are really just a continuation of that same abuse and resistance.
Elise is 1 year old today.
Elise, Moji.
Now, my mother is a criminal for being on a property that she's owned since 1982, or that I'm a criminal if I climb a tree to try and prevent it from being cut down on that property, this property where I've, lived my whole life.
People, if they don't look into it and they don't, question what they're being told and just choose to believe what Sunoco's telling them, it sounds like a very rosy picture, and it's not.
A few years ago, pipelines, because the majority were built and constructed, years, decades ago, they're just out of sight, out of mind, besides seeing a pipeline marker on the street. Obviously now there's a significant more awareness in terms of pipeline because of the construction and kind of, I guess, the growth of the infrastructure.
This pipeline was named Mariner for a reason, because it's going across the Atlantic Ocean.
8 ships will make their way from Marcus Hook on the banks of the Delaware River, loaded with a cargo set to re-energize European and UK manufacturing.
They never tried to hide that fact until people stood up to them and said, no, I will not, sign this easement agreement. The company had to start taking people to court and suing using eminent domain. Then they changed their tune and they started putting out all this stuff about how it's going to benefit the local markets and local people and this and that. And, we already know that they're working with European petrochemical companies to, move the shale gas to Europe.
A new era of gas transportation has begun as the Dragons breathe new life into the European chemicals industry.
INEOS isn't the type of company that will sit back and wait to see what happens. It's a type of company that will be proactive and define its own future.
Off of exploitation. That's how billions get made. You take from somebody else. You take from the earth without giving anything back. That's the direction that Pennsylvania is taking things in favor of corporations.
So you're trying to figure out what it is.
Sunoco has merged with Energy Transfer Partners, and they're using the same type of private security for intelligence gathering and surveillance. It's hard to know what they're going to try and fabricate. We're putting our faces out there, we're putting the story out there, we're telling the truth, and yet we have this looming thing hanging over us when are we going to jail and for how long? When the law enforcement won't help you, the courts won't help you, the regulatory agencies won't help you, you either do nothing or you have to help yourself, or you have to get help from your community or other allies. And so that's what we've done.
There's that lack of respect, and there's that lack of feeling responsible and feeling stewardship for the environment. And I think we need to get some of that back at some point before it's gone.